If you've been on the internet at all recently, you'll have seen Pokemon POKOPIA and just how adorable it is, being the perfect love child of Pokemon and Animal Crossing. Autistic and queer people everywhere cried out with joy the day it was released, and as an autistic lesbian myself, of course, I had to 100% complete this absolute gem of a game. And I'm so excited to share this with you that we're gonna cut the intro short, so remember to like, subscribe, and join me as I bring life back to this gorgeous world. I woke up as a joyful, jiggly jello angel, sculpted myself into a powerful and strong body, and then plopped down into a cave where I met Professor Tangrowth. He seemed like he was in shock at my sudden appearance, which is strange considering he himself is a Pokemon. He mentions that both humans and Pokemon have completely abandoned this place for some unknown reason. After he gave me this old Pokedex that he had laying around, I told him that my name was Shelby and that I was imitating the name and look of my old trainer. The professor took us out onto the cliff and showed us this completely barren and empty world. Well, empty except for one thing. And apparently it took the professor a while to notice this dried up Squirtle. He really needs to lift those glasses up a little. The pair of us quickly run down and I transform into the Squirtle just enough to be able to use Water Gun to rehydrate it, and just like that, we have our first new friend in this world. And now that we can imitate Squirtle and use Water Gun, we can restore another habitat, and who else showed up but this precious angel Bulbasaur? I feel so maternal towards him, I can't even explain it. Professor Tangrowth said that I must have some sort of mysterious power because since I've arrived, Pokemon have been popping up everywhere. And also, if I didn't have a mysterious power, then there wouldn't be a plot point. Bulbasaur asked me to revive a bunch of tall grass with Water Gun, and in exchange she'd teach me a new ability. I did just a little more than I was asked, and Bulba Baby taught me how to use Leafage, and instead of using it to attack water types, I will instead be using it to plant cute bushes and make Pokemon habitats to make new friends. This is immediately put into effect by making Squirtle a patch of tall grass to live in. After sharing some berries with Bulbasaur and Squirtle, the professor gave me a chair which was very dear to him, and I proceeded to eat in one bite. Luckily, this is just my way of storing things, and we haven't digested the professor's prized possession. Bulbasaur took me over to what he thought was a bed, but turned out to be a workbench for crafting. I adore my stupid little plant baby. I use the workbench to make a campfire, but of course I can't light it without help from a certain beloved lizard. I build another tall grass habitat for Charmander, who quickly shows up and helps me light my bonfire, and we can all gather around it and take a lovely nap. Of course, this calm does not last. The professor takes us exploring where we can find a PC, and this is where we can get challenges to earn coins, buy more decorations, and tips for building habitats for new Pokemon. Basically, the PC is just the base of operation. We can also find habitat hints in the form of these little sparkly spots that are hidden around the world. I headed around, building a bunch of new habitats, a tree-shaded grass patch for Scyther, a boulder-shaded grass patch for Timber, and a training rest area for Hitmonchan. 2 of them can give me a new ability, but we'll have to do little quests for those first. Giving Hitmonchan a few stones prompts him to teach me Rock Smash, which can be used to break blocks around the world. And giving Scyther some sturdy sticks gets him to teach us Cut to be able to get rid of piles of branches or cut down tall grass patches that I don't want anymore. I help Bulbasaur out a little more by placing down a little bed because I love her so much. By creating and placing things that a Pokemon likes within and around their habitat, their comfort level will increase. By making Pokemon more comfortable, they'll contribute to a higher environment level, and the higher your environment level is for an area, the more things you can buy from the PC store. And even in a barren, apocalyptic wasteland, capitalism remains that one cockroach that just won't die. We can give Scyther some small logs that I've picked up to turn into lumber, which is just another ingredient used in different crafting recipes. I found this adorable little Bellsprout in a tree-shaded grass patch that I'd made, and finally, it's time for me to stop being homeless. Professor Tangrowth said that I need to build myself a house, and so I can buy a set of leaf den plans from the PC, and with the help of a few Pokemon and a bunch of materials and honestly quite a bit of patience, I'll have a house. But there's some time until it's done, so it's time for some exploring. In the area to the right, I find a drill bit and water some dirt so he can use rototiller to be able to plant seeds in it, which he then taught me how to do as well. A comb bee moved into the flower bed in the area we started in, and I was very happy about that because, well, you know, bee. I found a dowsing machine up on a hill buried in some rocks, gave Scyther a bath because he's stinky, and some flowers to make him happy, leveled up the environment to level 3, made Drillba a home by planting a bunch of veggies, found an adorable little owl in a patch of flowers, and finally, my own home was ready. Once I decorated the inside of my new home, and by that I mean placed 3 pieces of furniture so it counts as a home, Professor Tangrowth sent Charmander to get some special berries to celebrate. However, before we could celebrate, with Charmander's ass adequately crushing the berries, we can't eat them, but we can still find a way to make the best of it. Tangrowth makes a flag with the stained cloth which we can use to mark our home, and with the home claimed, we can now teleport back to that at any time. But we have much bigger fish to fry. Or I guess, buildings to build. With our builders now freed up, we can get to work on repairing the absolute mess of a Pokemon Center, with the idea of maybe attracting humans back to the island once the infrastructure's set back up. Why we'd want to do that, I have no idea, but hey, plot points. And while materials aren't too bad, I need 8 Pokemon to help build it, and specifically I need one with the Bulldoze specialty. And that's something I don't have. While looking for a Bulldoze user, I found this Drifloon who asked me to put 3 campfires together to make it a home. Of course I did it, because there'd be nothing to indicate that that would be a bad idea. I also got a call from Professor Tangrowth while he was trying to figure out how the PC worked, which made me laugh more than it should have. He's just like an old man in a pile of vines. I love him so much. I found a magazine in a cave about Misty, which unlocked a new hairstyle. There's a bunch of fun stuff like this, like magazines or tablet entries that unlock new stuff or give lore or context. I'm not going to cover all of it in this video, just because I want people to be able to still explore this game for themselves, but I'll go over all the helpful or important ones. I'll say now, though, there aren't many. It's mostly just, like, context and lore. I found an Onyx in that same cave, but he was stuck behind some rocks that I couldn't break. I'm sure that one very smart Tangrowth can send me on an unrelated side quest and then maybe help with my problem after. Of course, when I asked the professor, he ignored me and sent me on a complete tangent. Breaking through the southern cave, we can find this weird lighthouse-type thing covered in sand, and interacting with it causes a weird voice to come through asking us to do the Team Initiation Challenge, and because I'm sure they have pure and honest hearts and not even the slightest bad intention, perfect morals, I'm sure nothing's gonna happen with this mysterious Team R. This was immediately followed by an interaction with a Magikarp that felt like a fever dream. He was flopping around asking, "Yo, where am I?" and then asked me to build him a habitat with a fishing rod and a log seat. A fish wanting to live near a fishing rod kinda seems like a snowman living next to a volcano, but who am I to judge? And to reward me, he shows me how to use Splash, which in human words is just jumping, apparently. With the professor's little bullshit side tangent done, we gather everyone round and start to brainstorm. We come up with the idea that to get Onyx out, we're gonna have to soften the ground around it to be able to break it. Which means we have to make it rain. Which means I have to make a habitat for Slowpoke, which turned out to be the easy part. Getting the half-horsepower little shit to the professor took so long that it might have actually been quicker to wait for a second apocalypse. After seriously considering reintroducing the Slowpoke tail trade, we finally made it to the professor, and apparently we need to get Slowpoke to do a 100-point yawn to make it rain. Because obviously the move Rain Dance would be stupid. Yawning is the thing we need to make it rain. But of course, it can't be as easy as waiting for Slowpoke to get sleepy. Slowpoke needs it to be more humid to make its yawn more powerful. So in the words of Bulbasaur, let's make this place humid! We plant flowers, water trees, plant new trees, discover a Vespiquen, which I don't think help with the humidity, but she's cute, so I'm mentioning it. By moving Squirtle into a hydrated tall grass habitat and setting up some cast form dolls with a berry, we can do a rain dance ritual to make Slowpoke sleepy. And I really don't understand why we could not just remove the yawning step. Just do the rain dance ritual. You know, for the rain. Despite my confusion, the yawn plan seemed to work. Or at least, briefly. It wasn't nearly enough to help soften the rocks, but it was enough to wake up some help. So that's a Kyogre. And I don't know why they have a southern US accent. Anyway, they make it rain, which not only helps with the Onyx situation, but also reinvigorates the dried up earth, which saves me a lot of time, since without that I would have had to go around and water every single bit of dried up land and grass in this entire island. Anyway, Kyogre headed back for a nap, and when I got back to the rain dance site, I found this adorable squishy dragon baby. Isn't she the cutest? Now that we have everything we need to rebuild the Pokemon Center, we can begin. However, it's not going to be done till tomorrow, so I gotta find other stuff to do. I start by shuffling some stuff around, making better habitats, and then dumping a bunch of leper berries at the definitely not evil place with the sand. They gave me a bouldery badge for that, and then tasked me with getting 10 beans, wheat, and tomatoes. None of which I know how to get yet, so I guess that's another waiting game. I found some asper berries and beans while exploring, and new stuff is always nice. And speaking of new things, I came across this area gate, and since my trainer rank upgraded to Great after meeting Kyogre, it opened up for me to go through. Professor Tangrowth, of course, comes with me through the gate like an overprotective helicopter parent, and we find this rugged, mountain/cave-like terrain, which apparently used to be a mine. We head over to a PC nearby, but it's not connected to the electricity, and it's too heavy for me to move on my own. So the professor says that we should find a Machoke to help. I ignored this advice and made a tall red grass habitat for the adorable little school bunny that moved in. But the bunny did turn out to be very helpful, and said that if I put some sandbags near a red grass habitat, a Machoke should turn up to train. Once that was constructed, I joined Machoke for a training session where I learned to use strength myself and shatter Machoke's ego by immediately mastering the one thing he practices every day. And now I can slide the PC back into place myself. I love that POKOPIA includes the action of making men feel inadequate. The PC says that the area is called the Rocky Ridges, but doesn't really give much more information. Afterwards, the professor and I hear a voice calling from nearby, and when we investigate, we find a chef Pokemon stuck in a barrel. Apparently they were looking for ingredients. We try to use Cut on the chain to help them down, but it was too tough, so we'll have to employ the help of yet another Pokemon. By making a pointy, tree-shaded, rocky, tall grass habitat, Jesus, that was a mouthful, we can find Dartrix, and this dapper birdie can help us make a cutting board, because apparently cooking is the key to getting the chef free. Anyway, I made Dartrix a perch, and in exchange it taught me how to make cutting boards. School Bunny helps us make a salad, and by eating it I can power up my leafage. Now, if we hold the button instead of just tapping it, we can place 5 grass plots at once instead of just 1. But it seems that that first dish was just to show off how cool food is in this game. I need a completely separate meal to be able to cut the chain, and this one requires a bread oven. And in order to make that, we're gonna have to find yet another completely different Pokemon. But I wasn't too mad because it's Torkoal, and I adore her with everything in my soul. Ash's Torkoal in the anime was the best. I can use my newly powered up leafage to make a mossy hot spring habitat at the hot springs area to attract an adorable tortoise. I made them a little path over to the Pokemon Center, and now we can make a bread oven. With the bread made, we can power up Cut and finally slice through the chain and free the lovely, wonderful Miss Chef Dente. And I love her so much. She's perfect. She mentions that she's also looking for humans, more specifically her buddy, who was the best chef in the region. She wants to make a bunch of houses and restaurants in an attempt to bring back the humans. But we can't do that without more environment progress, and naturally that means we need more recipes. We need to make a frying pan, but that means we have to find out how to turn ore into ingots and ingots into a pan. Using the newly upgraded Cut, we can slice through the gates in order to get down to the mine, and down in the mine, we can use a forge, a wheelbarrow, and some tools to make a habitat for a Magmar. While I waited for it to smelt up the ingots in the forge, I wandered around helping out the others, making a special shredded salad with Dartrix, making a new habitat to get Machoke's friend back, and making School Bunny some balloons. Finally, with the copper done, we can make a frying pan and a cooking pot. Adding a bunch of beans to the frying pan gets us a hamburger steak to power up the Rock Smash ability, and putting some fresh water I found in the cooking pot means we can make soup to upgrade Water Gun. Soon after, Graveler arrives and teaches me how to use Rollout so I can get around quicker. I found this sweet little Cricketot in a grass patch, and I went around increasing comfort levels for a while and got the environment level up to level 3, which means we can finally start repairing the Rocky Ridges Pokemon Center. While exploring and looking for materials to repair the center, I found this very funky Rotom who had possessed a set of speakers, and I was so excited about this. It's so cool seeing a new Rotom form after so long, and it gave me the recipe for a large storage box. Love that guy. I also ended up finding a Carkol and a Riolu. I took a real-life nap while I waited for the Pokemon Centers to be done, and when I woke up, the Wasteland Center was done, but that's not important. What is important is that it's party time. Chef Dante gives me a massive party-sized cooking pot and gets me to fill it up with berries and beans and stuff. Then I have to decorate the area, grab a Ludicolo from a nearby pond, and raise the vibes to the point of party time. Yes, this is another yawn-type minigame. Once the vibe had reached level 100, Chef Dante had finally figured out what we needed for the perfect party. A party-sized curry. Naturally. And while it was cooking, I realized there was volcanic ash fucking everywhere. And it's gonna take a while to clean this up. But that's an issue for future Shelby. Current Shelby has a much bigger issue, because after we ate the curry, the angry teething ring known as the legendary Pokemon Volcanion, who seems to be not so fond of humans, appeared. But this diva did seem to be a fan of the occasional party, and so now I've befriended a second deity. And as a thank you for showing him some excitement, Volcanion rained firework mortar shells down on the ridges. But hey, no one was maimed, so I think we can call that a success overall. And even better, after greeting a Larvitar, we can start the rebuilding of the Rocky Ridges Pokemon Center. But with that, we must bid the Ridges farewell for now. Over at the coast, we can make a makeshift bridge over to this walkway and head over to the ever-iconic, but slightly different Pallet Town, not to be confused with Pallet Town, home of Ash Ketchum. Upon talking to the PC, I was told that this little village was my personal island, only accessible to me, and I renamed it Honey Hive Village. We're gonna make this look adorable later on, but for now we've got some more stuff to do. As I was about to head out, I met this adorable little angel Eevee who was looking for her friends, which are, of course, her evolutions. And while I can't commit to finding her friends right now, I can set her up an adorable little flower field with a nice bed and a campfire. That is admittedly unlit right now, but she seems happy enough. Our next stop is through the second Great Level Gate, which takes us over to the Bleak Beach, which is very much giving either Vermilion City from Kanto or Olivine City from Johto. We fix a bridge for the professor to walk over, and then block off a flood to make the PC work again, and of course, now we have another Pokemon Center to rebuild. But first, exploration. While I was clearing up the little base area around the center, a little Meowth showed up out of the blue asking for help. After all the humans and Pokemon disappeared, it was left alone and moved into a little shack nearby, which was perfect, until it got an unexpected water feature. By fixing the waterways, we can restore this little sweetie pie's home and get the idea to fix all the drainage channels in town to make it a little less damp. While cleaning up and repairing the channels, I found a book confirming that this is in fact Vermilion City, or at least what's left of it. I restored a little knitting station nearby and gave a Mareep some scritches which let her move in. I wandered around some more, clearing things up and repairing bridges until I found this very cute Smeargle with a little paint stash. Then Gogol here asked me to crush him up some leper berries to bring him some inspiration. And by setting up a restaurant habitat, a Pormo can move in and use his crush ability to turn some berries and veggies into paint. Usually showing the red paint that gets made to the art school Smeargle would be great, but he wanted to eat the berry. I don't know why it had to be crushed for him to eat it, but to each their own, I guess. To make him feel better, I agreed to be his disciple, which gives me the recipe for paint balloons, and I assume this kind of makes him redundant, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I need him for, like, bigger stuff. Nearby, I found a cave with the single most wonderful thing I've ever seen. This precious, adorable, sleepy, moss-covered Snorlax. And I swear, if we don't get a regional grass-type mossy Snorlax in Pokemon Winds and Waves, I'll be sending very strongly worded emails and possibly throwing hands with Nintendo. Unfortunately, he is fast asleep, and nothing is pulling this sweet angel out of his nap time, so we'll come back later. Because I wasn't sure what to do now, I decided to head back to the team initiation challenge now that I've found all the veggies that the guy wanted. On another note, I found an Ivysaur that had taken residence in one of the flower fields in the Withered Wastelands, which are looking far less withered now. By handing in the veggies, I got the Cascade-like badge and the first light on the building that had indicated that all the beginner challenges of the initiation challenge were done. But now, it wants more shit that I don't know how to get, so looks like this is going straight back on the back burner for now. Turns out, all I had to do at the beach was place a few mushroom lamps in Meowth's home. I swear I have the reading comprehension of a 4-year-old. Anyway, after doing that, Meowth mentions that he has a certain penguin-shaped buddy who can help clear up all the mud around here. And since I'm not a moron, I'm quite the Piplup fan. Look this sweetheart in the eyes and tell her you dislike her. Or don't, because I'll throw rotten tomatoes at you and boo. The precious penguin and I wandered around the main island, clearing up all the grime with plenty of snack breaks to keep spirits high. Back at the center, Meowth lets us know where we can find a Torchic, yet another adorable bird-based baby. And one of my personal favorite starter Pokemon, because I have phenomenal taste. This precious chick literally offered toasty hugs on cold days. If she's not the sweetest, I don't know who is. We can give Torchic a bunch of squishy clay and have her turn it into bricks for us. And while I waited for the bricks, I grabbed a bunch of trash off the beach. Little PSA, if you're out in nature or just anywhere in general, take your trash home with you or throw it in a bin. If you don't, you're a jackass. This Pokemon is literally a trash bag, and even he hates people who litter. He eats the garbage and spits out just the iron ore for us. He loves the snack, but he still hates you if you throw trash on the ground. With that iron ore, we can make Piplup a shower so it can splash around to its heart's desire. And after adjusting some habitats, I got to Environment Level 3, which means the Pokemon Center rebuild is now unlocked. But before getting to that, Trubbish asks us to investigate some mysterious noises, which turn out to just be Mosslax, and we need to wake it up now, since its snoring is starting to disturb others. And of course the professor knows how to do that, because he knows everything but can do absolutely nothing by himself. The professor says that to wake up Mosslax, we're gonna need to light the town up. We can connect the streetlights to the water wheels or windmills using some utility poles that are also laying around. And honestly, they produced so much more light than I would expect. Like, the entire aura of the place kind of lit up. It's crazy. Back at the cave, a few little flowers on Mosslax's head started to bloom, but she just slept through it, so not only is she sleepy, but she looks adorable too. My kind of diva. While lighting the town up, I found this Zorua who wanted help disguising themselves as a set of toy blocks. I made her some blocks and she did such a good job camouflaging. She also taught me how to disguise myself too, which I think is more useful for playing with friends than in the story, but really cute regardless. On the beach I found a silver feather making a literal tornado, which I can only assume is a link to Lugia, but that's not important right now. While trying to raise the light level of the island, I come across a pale, ghostly Pikachu. He says we should call him Pikachu for now. He can't remember how he got here, but his ears are down, and his tail is little, and he can't produce electricity, and when I tell you I sobbed at finding this sweet, sickly little angel, I feel so maternal towards him. That's my son, and if anyone harms him, I will become Mama Bear. Or Mama Bee, I guess. Trubbish lets us know about the lighthouse up on the cliff, which I actually fixed up earlier while I was exploring because I'm just the coolest ever. Torchic takes us over to the furnace where I can put burnable items in to generate electricity, and all of that brings us to only 69 out of 100 bloom points. I see you laughing. Don't worry, I did too. To finish off the last few bloom points you need, you've got to place a bunch of utility poles around the town. You get the recipe for them over by the furnace, and if you look at the grey blocks around town, some of them have little circles in the middle. If you place the poles on those bricks, they should connect up to the water wheel, and the windmill or the furnace and spread power to most of the town. And once you've done that, Pikachu gives you more tips on how to light the town up. By connecting this platform to the generator and multiple other power sources, we can activate it and generate a bunch of electricity for Pikachu to absorb. He still can't create his own electricity, but by absorbing the electricity from the platform, he can let out what can only be described as an electrical storm, somehow not frying every living thing close to him and wake up Moslax with a nightlight that's more of a flashbang. Or at least that's what you'd expect. But instead, we have to enlist the help of yet another flashbang, this one by the legendary Raikou itself, who seems to think Snorlax is a lightning rod. Again, not exactly a gentle wake-up call. Raikou, like the other legendaries, doesn't know what happened to all the humans, but suspect that this town became a ghost town because of the dark clouds blocking out the sun and various natural disasters that have been wreaking havoc on the surrounding area. But now that we've made another legendary into a glorified drinking buddy, we got the upgrade from Great to Ultra level Trainer. Luckily, Moslax is unharmed, but definitely stunned. He got hit with enough voltage to make Zeus blush and calls it a lil shocking. This guy's dedication to sleep is unmatched. He then immediately tried to go back to sleep. I've never related more to a Pokemon in my life. But now we've made friends with this handsome flower crown wearing lad. But before we head over to the next area, Piplup and I ask Professor Tangrowth which Pokemon would be best to help me learn how to surf. He of course mentions Lapras, which is like the surfing Pokemon that comes to mind other than surfing Pikachu. So I set up a nice little tropical flower bush area for her, and since I already cleaned up all the mud earlier, she happily shows me how to imitate her and learn how to swim. And look how cute I am. I'm adorable. Even Mama Lapras says so. With the ability to swim, we can head out and explore some of the previously out of reach areas. In this cruise ship type thing, I found a little crying Happiny, and of course Mama Bee had to help her. The little darling was woken up by an alarm clock, and not knowing what it was terrified her. After I showed her what it was, she relaxed, and placing the alarm clock down made her feel right at home. She also found a cash register which she thought was a music-y instrument, so of course I had to fix it up for her to play her music. With that all done, we can finally start repairs on the Beach Pokemon Center and then head over to the next area. It was a beautiful collection of floating islands, and by that I mean islands in the sky, because contrary to what some people believe, islands in the sea aren't actually floating. It reminded me of one really specific world from New Super Mario Bros. On DS. Since we can't fly yet, we have to use these platforms that were made to transport people between the islands. On the first of the main few islands, we find a Rookidee near the Pokemon Center ruins, and they offer to help us repair the habitats around the area. PC also mentioned that the area's name was the Sparkling Skylands, which is fitting considering the massive floating islands made out of literal crystal. The second that I found out Sprigatito could spawn here, I knew she was going to be the one I wanted to find first. And finding out that I could have Vulpix as her neighbor was just everything to me. These two absolute sweethearts being neighbors is just everything to me. It makes me so happy. I found other clues for Pokemon like Cyndaquil, Froakie, and Dratini, and honestly, with that lineup, this may be my favorite area so far. Adorable Pokemon, an amazing environment. What more could a girl ask for? Other than for you to subscribe and join the Discord in the link in the description. Froakie helps me clear up all the mud, and then also gives me a tip that Dragonite lives around a lake with a canoe in it, and so that's my main goal right now. I adore Dragonite, and oh my god, look at this gentle giant. Not only is he so sweet, but he taught me how to fly too. Or glide at least. And I'm so pretty while I do it. Tell me I'm pretty. Dragonite glides over with us to the next island over, where we hear some crazy noises, and upon investigating, we find a Swiss Army Tinkaton. She calls herself the Tink Master. She needs 6 blocks of concrete to help repair the lift, and so I went off to play Errand Girl again. There was a very pretty Gardevoir nearby, and I'm allowed to say that is not weird, because technically I'm a Ditto. Anyway, she takes us over to a building nearby which has a cave underneath it full of Pokemetal scrap. This can be smelted into Pokemetal and rare Pokemetal ingots to be used in special recipes. Up to this point, I'd found maybe 10 Pokemetal and 5 rare Pokemetal, so having all these fragments available was so nice. I built a habitat for Conkeldurr and headed around finding more reasons why this is the best area. a Swablu, a fancy Snivy at a play area, and I also made Sprigatito a little crop field. Eventually, Conkelda showed up, but to make concrete he needs a mixer, which means I'll need to wait for iron bars to make one. While I was waiting, I headed out to explore the island and found a way to get fresh paper. By building a professor's apprentice station to attract a Matang, he can turn waste paper into regular paper, which we need for the team initiation challenge. So now that can finally go back on the to-do list. I set Matang's station up on the super trashed, rusty metal island since I think the vibes fit so well. Anyway, with the concrete made, I took that and some iron over to Tinkmaster for her to make into Tinker Gears. Using the gears and some more iron, we can make another platform to connect to a pre-existing one, and now we can cross the gap easily. While walking Tinkmaster over to the Pokemon Center ruins, she points our attention to a massive fuck-off tower in the distance. She says that if we use our combined building genius to fix it up, that maybe the humans will return. Turns out that that massive tower is what remains of the old Silco building. And frankly, if everyone knew the story of what happened at Silco the first time, I don't think we'd want humans back. But Tinkmaster is insistent, so we scoped out the building and she placed down maybe the biggest building kit ever. It requires so many materials and so many Pokemon to help, so time for more exploration. We meet a Polyrath nearby who asks us to collect a bunch of sand, but once we do that, he tells us that it's just useless and gets really upset. This causes the Pokédex to keep mentioning that it's not useless, and it's so funny to me that literally the Pokédex has to keep reminding you, hey, maybe don't listen to Polyrath, he's a little dumb. He asked for some help getting back up to his dojo, which meant we had to make a little place for an Alakazam to move in and tell us how to make an elevator platform. I met a very sleepy Gyarados in a pool, and after giving him a bread bowl to wake him up, he taught me how to use Waterfall, which means now I can surf up any waterfalls that I find. Once I was done exploring, I finally got all the materials and Pokemon to Silph and got building. With so many construction projects underway, it was nap time for Queen Bee. And sure enough, when I woke up, it was all done. Or at least, the second floor was done. I had to wait a little longer for the others to be done, and put more materials in. The third floor was a cafeteria type thing, so we needed our favorite fluffy chef. Miss Chef Dente agreed to help and called me Dumpling, which made me feel incredibly special and very loved. After another hour, floor 3 was ready, and then there was just one more floor to get fixed up. And fittingly enough, my fancy pale son will be our helper for floor 4. And my little ghostly lad was more than happy to help, so off to the building site we go. With all the stuff in place, just one more hour later, our skyscraper was ready, turning the disgusting remnants of capitalistic greed into a beautiful hotel for our little Pokemon buddies. The way it always should be. But as we were admiring our work, yet another natural disaster happened. And of course, it was left up to me to investigate the roof. While we were there, we found a Master Ball, and inside... The Mewtwo called me strange, and mentioned that the last humans they saw were nefarious ones, creating a building on the beach of an area where rain no longer falls. I wonder what definitely not suspicious challenges that could be referring to. But after registering Mewtwo to the Pokédex, my trainer rank increased one more time. I was placed on the council and granted the rank of Master. There's only a few things left to clear up for the story now. Firstly, we need to start construction of the Skylands Pokemon Center, which requires a whole lot of stuff. Pokemetal and gold, most notably, and while I had to wait a full day for this to be done, through the power of editing, boom, building. And with that, we have but one important request left. For now, anyway, I don't know if it's more, but right now, the totally chill and not evil initiation challenges are all we have left to do. I handed them a bunch of flammable materials that I'm sure won't be used for a nefarious purpose in exchange for a Thunderish badge. Then a bunch of bricks, gold, and concrete for the Rainbowish badge. But the next request was a little more difficult. I had to generate electricity, and the easiest way to do that is with water wheels since I'm at the beach. But to get the construction sets for the water wheels, we need to raise the environment of Bleak Beach to level 5. Our first stop was to my dearest mother, Lapras. I want to make her such a cute little habitat because she's precious. I made her a little straw bed, a shell lamp, a few sandbanks to make it look more natural looking, and honestly, I think this is super cute. Even if it is a little small, Lapras seems happy. Next up was Marie, who asked us to make her a little vending machine place, but I couldn't leave her with the bare minimum. I made her a little overhang area with knitting materials and a soft sofa to chill on, and while I think it's adorable and Marie seems to agree, it did bring a problem to the surface. Building new habitats for all the new residents was putting a strain on my limited resources, and so I had to do something I hadn't done up until this point. Once a day, if you take a Pokédoll over to Drifloon, it will take you to a different Dream Island depending on the type of doll you show it. And you can absolutely ransack these for materials, but what I didn't expect was to meet a Suicune in a cave while I was there. But while I was there, I took fucking everything. Wood, rocks, berries, trees, flowers, bushes, walls, floors, ceilings. I even stole the fucking legendary Pokémon. Because I didn't want this video to take a million years to come out, I ended up doing the date skip trick since you can only go to one kind of Dream Island a day, and I need so much shit. There are a few different kinds of dolls you can give to Drifloon, and the different dolls will take you to a Dream Island inspired by a different area. There's the Wastelands for the Eevee doll, the Ocean for the Pikachu doll, the Rocky area for the Clefairy doll, the Volcano for the Arcanine doll, and the Skylands for Dragonite. You can also give Drifloon a Ditto or Substitute dolls, and these will just take you to one of the 5 types of islands randomly. Once I had a few materials ready to go, it's back to building habitats. Growlithe was the next one I focused on, since the poor little darling doesn't even have a habitat right now. I set him up a lovely little beach chill spot with gorgeous flowers and plenty of fire to satisfy his needs. This is when I figured out that I did already have the water wheel kits unlocked, so we'll be back to decorating later. I am generationally stupid. Thanks to a fuck-up of monumental proportions, I managed to build the water wheel not in the water. So I rebuilt that, built one more water wheel and a windmill which could generate enough electricity, then with some crystals and tinker gears I can get the soul-like badge and complete the intermediate challenges. The first of the difficult tier challenges asked for 4 industrial beds, 4 resort lights, and 4 office desks, which was so much easier than the last challenge, and I got the Marshy badge for it. Part 7 wanted a washing machine, a fridge, and a Game Boy, and this time I do actually have to raise the environment levels of a few places. Back at the beach, I can finish up Growlithe's habitat and add a few more things to Lapras's to bring them both to the max satisfaction level of awesome. I tried to make Pikachu a home, but he was worried sick about his family, so first we had to make a picnic spot for Pichu. While I waited for baby Pikachu to spawn, I moved on to fixing Piplup's habitat, and to do that, I had to find a Paldean Wooper to help me store water to be able to make a waterfall. But that on its own ended up bringing me to environment level 5, so I can talk to Professor Tangrowth and get the recipe for a washing machine, and we'll be back to help out other people later on. We're off to the Rocky Ridges next, and the first habitat I wanted to do up is Miss Chef Dente herself. I set her up the cutest little restaurant with an apartment behind her kitchen, and it only took one more habitat after that to reach level 5 in the Rocky Ridges. I made a little undercliff retreat for Score Bunny with a nice bed, some plushies, and a bunch of fire. And after that was all sorted, we got the fridge recipe. The last piece of the puzzle is the Game Boy and the Sparkling Skylands. Of course, I started with Dragonite, and the one thing I dislike about building in this game is they don't have any vertical pillars other than the full block ones, and sometimes those just don't quite fit the vibe. I ended up using ladders to kind of look like support pole type things for a little overhang where I put her bed and a campfire. I did up Sprigatito's habitat too because I have favorites. She got a little shaded bed, a slide into a cute pool, and so many flowers. So many flowers. At some point I got environment level 5, I'm not sure when, but it's Game Boy time now. Back at the strange building, we can give them the washing machine, fridge, and Game Boy for the Volcano-y badge. And the final part of the challenge was to submit the most cherished photo that I had, which of course is the one of the little party we had in the Ridges. And once that was all done, I was given my Earth badge, and finally completing the team initiation challenges. But then they wanted more stuff, specifically 2 party poppers, which I get for getting the Withering Wastelands to Environment 5. I should have seen this coming. I started by finally doing the Hoppip event. After talking to the Hoppip that appears, you can find cotton spores on Dream Islands, which you can trade to her in the Pokémon Center for a bunch of decorative items. Food, drinks, bottles, a blanket, Everything you'd need for the cutest little picnic. After you grab a bunch of these items, you can make the Dandelion Lunchtime and Field Trip Friends habitats to attract Skiploom and Jumpluff. I set them both up a lovely little picnic in the field, and that gave us the environment level that we needed. Unfortunately, the hatch was blocked, so we couldn't deliver the party poppers. Professor Tangrowth and I set them off instead and caused a rocket to set off, which, realistically, I should have seen coming, but anyway. We get a really cute cinematic of all the Pokemon we've seen watching the launch and the final credits roll. And while we have so much more to do before this game is really done, let's talk about my final opinions. I truly adored this game. It's so cute, and while I also love the regular Pokemon games, it leaves a lot to be desired in terms of expanding on the Pokemon themselves. And this game was the perfect fix to that problem. It gave really deep and fun personalities to the creatures that we've grown to know and love over the years, and even made me love some Pokemon that I'd not bothered trying out before. Of course, it's not all perfect. A lot of the building mechanics feel a little bit funky right now, but with constant updates and events coming to the game with new mechanics, items, and Pokemon, I can only assume that the few problems that do exist within the game will be solved in the future. I genuinely have nothing but good things to say about this game. Everything from the characters to the art style to the writing felt so funny and well done. Though I will say I may be a little bit biased because Pokemon has been my favorite franchise since I was like 4 years old. And because of how deep my love for Pokemon is, and also building and the aesthetic of nature taking back the world is one of my favorites, so this game does just tick a lot of boxes for me personally. But with that all done, let's get back to finishing the Pokedex. After the cutscene rolls, Professor Tangrowth explained that the humans must have flown into space to find a new world after whatever cataclysm happened in this one, which honestly isn't a bad way to explain the continued absence of humans in this world after the story. In the hole where the rocket ship used to be, there was a little Magnemite who was understandably a little bit shocked at his home flying away, so I promised to make it up to him by making him a new one. But first, I need to make a home to let me fast travel to each area. But of course, I can't do anything without getting distracted, and while I was going to set up the beach house, I got a message that there was a presence coming from the ocean. So of course I went to check it out, and it ended up being our old friend Kyogre. It didn't really do much, but it's always nice to see our old god friend stopping in for a chat. I constructed a house using each of the area's styles of house kits. A leaf house in the wastelands, a stone house in the ridges, a sandy house on the beach, and a city house in the Skylands. Honestly, I don't love the stone or city ones, but the leaf and sand ones are pretty cute. Unfortunately, I can't properly furnish them yet, because the recipes I want are locked behind the Pallet Town Island environment levels, which I ended up doing on stream. So if you ever want to catch me live, the link to my Purple platform is down below in the description, as well as a link to the Discord server for notifications when I go live or upload a new video. We'd love to have you there. Well, the plan was to do it all on stream anyway, but I got a little overexcited and started early. I placed down a bunch of habitats to get started, and some Pokemon came to the islands, and it didn't take long for a bunch of new friends to start popping up, as well as some very questionable things said by Volbeat. I decided to bring Bulbasaur over from the Withered Wasteland since I need someone to help me make my plants grow quicker, and also I want my baby on my mini island. I'll probably also bring Combee, Vespiquen, and the Hoppip line over at some point too, because I love them. I of course started by making Eevee's habitat a little better. This isn't permanent, but she definitely deserves something better for the meantime. For now, I just gave her a bunch of toy blocks and some sweet food, but I need to gather some resources before making it really nice. Before I know it, I'm at environment level 3 and ready to repair the Pokemon Center, but I do need one more Pokemon. I set up a bed with a plush to attract a Munchlax for the Bulldoze specialty, and now we can start the Pokemon Center repair. It says it'll be done tomorrow, but I can time travel. So once the center was done, I started construction on a leaf house, and again, they wanted a full day, but you know. Now that I have a fast travel point to every area, I can actually start on the progression for Honey Hive Village, which is getting all of the evolutions. There are a bunch of different challenges you need to do to get the special items to attract the evolution. These challenges range from growing veggies, placing roads, powering machines, basically every mechanic that we've learned throughout the game. And I want to decorate, so I started in the main island placing a bunch of grass flooring, and honestly I don't know how I feel about it. It's a nice color, but I'm not sure it goes with the regular grass. Either way, we're running with it for now. I want to unlock all the special evolution items before I start building fancy habitats for them, and I need to gather so much stuff for that. And to do that, I need to properly raise the environment for each area to its max of 10. And that'll give me all the recipes that I need. I'm going to start in the wastelands since it feels like I've neglected it a bit. Of course, the first habitat I had to do up was my fellow queen bee Vesperquen, and by extension, comb bee, since I put them near each other. I made them a nice little picnic set with a wooden table and a bench and a water basin for them to splash around in and keep cool on warm days. And of course, plenty of toys for the little baby bee. I finally set up a home for Magnemite, who taught me how to use Magnet Rise, and oh my god, this is so necessary for building. It lets you float up and down and replace blocks. It's just so helpful, so of course I had to make it a lovely little setup. I put it near the rocket launch place so it wouldn't feel homesick, and had a lovely construction-inspired idea with plenty of electronics and metal stuff for our sweet magnetic angel. The next pair I set up was Pidgey and Pidgeotto, and they like really similar things again, so this was easy to do them both at once. They like a lot of nature stuff, soft things like plushies, a sofa and a bed, a little water basin, plenty of toys, as much light as possible, and a fan for a nice little breeze. I've always had a soft spot for the Pidgey line, and I'm not sure why, since I don't think I've ever actually used them in a mainline game. Next, I set up a place for Goomy, and this was far easier than the others. A few flowers, a fountain, a bed, and some garlands, and he was more than happy. Next up was Suicune, since I think having a homeless demigod on my island isn't probably ideal. I made a nice little dockhouse with a side bit that I think is called a veranda or a cabana or something, but both of those words are far too large for me to use. Either way, setting up the legendary puppy we stole with some beachfront property brought the environment up to level 9. I chose Charizard as the last habitat to boost me up to level 10, since I knew that if I didn't give Charizard a nice habitat, I would get crucified in the comments. I set him up a berry campsite with a bunch of wooden stuff, which seems like a fire hazard, but anyway. That managed to bring the environment up to the max environment level of 10. And with that, our wastelands have become wonderful and flourishing hilly grasslands. And while it's not perfect, I do love it. Again, I ended up making a bunch of improvements while I was streaming, so if you want to see those, head over to the purple platform. We're moving swiftly onto the Bleak beach, and I'll be so real, I had no idea what to do here. I'm not a super big fan of the style. The first thing I did was fix up Meowth's little stall thing to give him a proper home. Giving him a fan to keep him cool, a fancy sofa, and a nugget in a frame to keep the bougie little kitty happy. Next up was a house for some of my favorites, starting with the adorable Minccino and Cinccino. I set up a nice little log cabin, and downstairs there was a main room with kitchen appliances and a cute bedroom for Minccino with a mirror and a closet. She didn't like doors for whatever reason when I was trying to put them down, so I gave her some curtains instead. Cinccino wasn't much different, plenty of stuff for her to make herself up and look all pretty, and with a plushie each, they were overjoyed with their homes. There was really no choice for the next habitat other than Pikachu himself, my dearest son. I went for a sort of old-school tavern-style build for this, and I don't love how it turned out, so I'll probably end up redoing it. But it was at this point while furnishing her place that I realized that Pikachu has a notched tail, meaning I have a daughter, not a son. And I love my daughter Transitu. I ended up having to take away the second floor because it was being weird with identifying the building as a house, but it still looks alright, I suppose. Of course I had to add a Pikachu sofa in her home, and that brought the habitat up to awesome level. I was gonna make Piplup or Torchic a habitat next, but I want all the first stage starters in Honeyhive Village, so instead I decided to give Trubbish a nice home. And by nice home, I mean landfill. I piled the habitat high with garbage, bins, boxes, crates, and a gaming bed, because anyone who feels the need to have an RGB bed, I would describe as a baby trash creature. Love you though, never changed either. With some final additions of scaffolding and iron pipes, our trash goblin was over the moon with his little home, and eventually his mom turned up too. I gave the iPad baby Toxel some sweet food and he was at his highest happiness, gave Maripa a flower cushion and pretty string lights, and that was literally all it took for her. Pichu was a little more complex, but after a bunch of flowers, some toys, and plenty of soft things like pillows and plushies, she was more than happy with her home too. Daydani was the next member of the electric daycare that needed improvements to their home, and she likes things that look like food but aren't food. So I made her a berry table, berry chairs, and berry lights. And once I gave her a nice meal, she was over the moon. And with Dedenne happy, we were brought up to environment level 9, but we aren't done with this little area. Pormy is next, and with her and Pormo liking the exact same things, I gave them a nice little setup, completing what I'm officially declaring as Electric Avenue. The best play place for my static little babies. Plenty of flowers, toys, electronics, and of course 2 Pikachu sofas. And with Electric Avenue completed, we reached environment level 10 at Bleak Beach. We're onto the ridges now, and I have a plan for the first little bit of this. I want to fix up the museum to act as a home for a few of the fossils. Not all of them though, because I want Amora and Aurorus in Honeyhive Village because they're adorable and my favorite. Fixing up the museum was a massive job. I needed to clear away the ash around it, which I didn't bother recording because it genuinely took a few hours. Then I had to grab a shit ton of different paints, and that took ages too because some of the paints were ones that you only get a small percentage of the time. I patched up the utterly destroyed museum and started placing the fossils down. Bastiodon, Shieldon, Rampardos, and Pteranodon in the downstairs area, then Tyrant and Tyrantrum in the upper area, and Aerodactyl on the balcony. But before we can start doing up their habitats, we have to help the museum's curator, this little guy in a chest. I can build him a mini museum habitat and set up a bunch of metal and shiny things. I set him up a bunch more artifacts on display. I'd like to think he's like Ariel from The Little Mermaid, displaying his human who's-its and what's-its galore. In the spirit of the Trinket Cave, I placed so many random human-like objects around as if the curator of the museum Gimmighoul had just found them and put them on display. Some examples of the weird and wonderful curios we have displayed here are some excavation tools, a funny statue, a CD player, a mug, and a newspaper. Luckily, Gimmighoul and most of the fossils seem to like the same or similar things, so it didn't take long to raise them to max comfort. And because there were so many of them in the museum, that took us all the way up to environment level 10 pretty much immediately. And now we're on to my favorite of the story areas, the Skylands. Vulpix is getting her renovation first because I love her. I decided to make her a habitat based on this card from Mega Evolution base set. I made a cute little corner where she can have an outside living room type thing with a fireplace and a little fire pit and torches and just so much fire. I'm not sure why I didn't build a full house for her, I just thought she'd prefer some open air. I decided that for most of this area, I didn't want to go down the house building route. I really love the apocalyptic style of mess around here, so I'm going to use the terrain mostly to make little hideouts. For example, this RGB hellhole known as the Gamer's Paradise habitat, which Metagross seemed to love. And I truly can't fathom why anyone would need an RGB fridge and bed. But both Matang and Metagross were incredibly easy to please. Matang had a comfy research station, and his older, more disappointing brother had his gamer setup. On the bright side, Metagross being made of metal made the stench far less unbearable than humans with the same setup. Gardevoir is next, and I plan on turning the 4th fancy floor of the Silco building into a penthouse for the Gardevoir line. Each of them had their own room, with Gardevoir having a very elegant and fancy room, and both Ralts and Curlia having very cutesy pink rooms. And now we have a girl boss CEO single mom living in her penthouse with her daughters. The best aesthetic. Finally, I made Misdreavus a cave stacked full of spooky shit and gave her and Flygon a meal to bring the Skylands up to environment level 10. And now we can finally move on to our last important request, finding Eevee's friends. We're in the home stretch now, and with these being the last few habitats for the video, I want to make them really special. The first is Vaporeon. I built her a nice little fountain on stream and set her up an ice cream float on a garden table with some cute chairs. She will be neighbors with Blossom, and they will be sophisticated high society women. Next is Jolteon, and he is the sound technician for the show that the Toxtricity are performing. In my mind, he runs the lights, mixes the sound, and makes sure all the electronics run smoothly. I was a little stumped with Flareon since I wanted all the evolutions to be in the same kind of area, so ultimately I decided to make her a cozy little hot spring area in the nearby cave. Espeon was supposed to be next, but apparently I don't know that 283 comes before 284, so we're doing Umbreon first. Our special little midnight kitty cat got a nice cozy place to read and nap with her plate of cookies in the middle. I ended up doing a dual habitat for Espeon and Sylveon. I decided that Sylveon runs a bakery right next to the makeup store that Espeon has. And while this is a pretty simple build, I think it might be one of my favorites just because it's so cute. For Leafeon, I took the opportunity to make a little pagoda-style thing that I keep seeing people build, and honestly, I think this is another one of my favorite builds. It's super simple but adorable, and it gives real, like, Sleeping Beauty vibes, which I think is adorable. I love my cottagecore kitty. And finally, we're at the end of our journey together. One last build. This one for Glaceon. I decided to make her a little hidden frozen grotto behind a waterfall. A bunch of ice to make her home nice and cold, and a bunch of cute furniture dyed a light blue color. And with that, our journey comes to an end. I just want to reiterate how much I loved this game. There's so much more to it that I didn't show in this video. There's over 100 more Pokemon, a bunch of lore you can find throughout the world by exploring, and if you can get this game to play through it for yourself, I absolutely recommend it. But with that being said, I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and join the Discord in the description below. See you next time, my honeybees.